Welcome to Gray Areas for March 11th, 2025, episode 664. The original trio, the OGs, are here, and we all were traveling earlier today after seeing each other this morning in the magical-ish city of Las Vegas.
Magical-ish? Where's the ish come into play?
Well, you know, there are upsides to it, and there's also like a seedy underbelly to it, and you get a little bit of everything, and
I would argue, where does the magic come into play?
right.
Not the ish. Where does the magical part come in?
I mean, there are a number of really cool like acts and shows that you could see that they do a really good job at.
David, explain this to me, Dave. David Copperfield, he has a magician. He's a magician act. On his poster, there's a bunch of dinosaurs and UFOs. What is that? That's not magic.
Time travel and teleportation. That is absolutely magic.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he could do that, I would actually maybe be interested in his show.
Isn't that what Chris, what's his face? I can't remember the magician that like floated on top of
Chris
Luxor.
Angel.
Chris Angel, that was his name.
I don't think he went back in time, but I could be wrong. I didn't follow his career that close.
Have you seen some of the things he's done? It's kind of insane. So who knows? Maybe, but I don't know. There's a little bit of the magic that comes from Vegas because they do some cool stuff as far as shows and things like that go.
I've always had beef, and it really came out after. So Republican radio, they had an entire bit where they was like, can you believe adult people go to Disneyland? And I'm looking around freaking Vegas and all of the castles and cartoon slot machines. And I'm like, this is the same thing as Disneyland, except it's grosser. And it's less responsible because there's no hand sanitizing stations. There's no water stations. Everybody's smoking. It's just Disneyland again. I don't know why Vegas is the adult place to go.
Because you can, gamble. You can smoke in public. It's like the only place in the world you can possibly still do it, pretty much.
But that's not adult. That's like what a 14, like Vegas is like what a 14-year-old thinks is the coolest place in the world. You can smoke, you can drink, you can gamble.
It's basically like the thing in Pinocchio, right?
Yeah.
Like, here we go. Here's where all the kids get to go and be grown-ups way too early, and they are going to have cigars, and they are going to play billiards. Ooh, remember when billiards were taboo and all that stuff? It's the same idea, just on a much grander scale.
So here's the problem, is that when all those things came into, like when Vegas kind of became the legend or whatever you want to call it, that is Vegas, all those things were kind of taboo, aside from smoking, I guess. But like a place where you can leave your kids behind and go gamble and smoke and drink in public and not like have to kind of conceal yourself was a difficult thing, I think, in the 70s, 80s, even early 90s time frame. Now it's everyone just does it anyway, so they don't give a shit.
Everyone was doing cocaine in the 80s.
Yeah, and they did a lot of it there in Vegas too, I'm pretty sure.
They did even more in Vegas. Well, and then all the slot machines, again, like they're not like, oh, these are adult, this is hardcore. It's like, and it's the same people talking about Disneyland as they talk about like video games. They're so bad. And it's like, these are all like stupid looking video games.
Have you ever thought that people who host political radio shows, regardless of their orientation, are just judgy assholes? Because I think that's probably it. Like, no matter your orientation.
Yeah.
Because, oh man, how dare adults go to Disneyland? That's so stupid and childish. Like, well, what if they like it? Like, well, okay, then can you like it? Like, that freedom, yay, you can do what you want. Yay.
No, you have to, if you're a man, you have to have a beard and you have to be outdoorsy. Sorry, Dave, you're not a man. You're halfway there.
50% ain't bad, and you're 0% man.
Yeah,
so
you're half a man, but I'm not allowed to say that in this administration, so better stop.
Because then what's the other half? You'll pay to find out. Yeah, so we were in Vegas for the last couple days because Cody, who is not here this week, the video people have already figured that out. Hell, the audio people have figured it out by now. It's been like 6 minutes. Cody got married. We talked about that in last week's show, so you can get his thoughts on just how it was coming up. He wasn't all that nervous, he said. That's in last week's episode. He's gone. We were going to try and have him call in. I reached out to him about a half hour before we went live. He said their plans got disrupted, and they were just going to go get dinner, so he didn't think it was going to be possible. So he will unfortunately not be able to call in. He can always talk about it in a future episode. We'll have time for a little 10-minute block of, what was your thoughts about the wedding and how everything went and all that. So we're just going to talk about our trip, part of which was to obviously do the wedding, but we also got to go see a hockey game. We got to tool around the strip a little bit, not a ton. Talk about that a bit. And also I turned 40 today, so we'll get to that eventually.
In 40 years, basically.
Yes.
So this is the first hockey game. Let's start with the hockey game because this is the first time I've been to a hockey game since I was like 12, I think, maybe 13. Like I was a young kid when I first went to one of a Coyotes game. And there's a reason that it's not a successful TV product, but a great in-person product because you can just see and feel the difference while you're there, I think.
Yeah. So from a accessible perspective, right? Like our wives were there and they were both fascinated. They loved the violence. That was probably the number one selling point, actually, looking back. But it's very like kinetic. It's fast moving. You're on offense, then all of a sudden you're on defense, and opportunities come out of nowhere. It's like all the best parts of soccer, but removing kind of like a lot of the tedium. It's really hard to sit back and just dink it back and forth. In hockey, normally you're going to get like overrun and blitzed if you just keep doing that, is at least what I saw from these teams. You kind of have to always sort of be pressing a little bit. So it was fun, and I actually really enjoyed it. I wish if we saw the Coyotes in town, that would help. But I need some kind of story. Like, oh, this team is all underdogs. It's the classic story of like maybe their whole team, like they were wiped out in some kind of plane crash or something. I'm just kidding. I'm not rooting for that. That's my go-to, right? And then it's like these guys who came out of nowhere now are trying to put it together, and like that could get me to buy in. I need a storyline. But I was happy with the product.
You'll get that if you followed it more. I agree with you in the sense that I need a rooting interest. Mm-hmm. Like watching a game is fun for one, but if I don't have a rooting interest, like a real strong rooting interest, I will lose interest. But it was like, I guess the hard part for me in hockey, trying to get a rooting interest is like, I don't know any of the players, and not that it's a bad thing, but there are a lot of foreign players, so it's hard to like keep up of like, hey, here's this story. Now there's been more American and Canadian players in the recent years, especially there's been a few players from Scottsdale recently, but it's just harder. They're not as well marketed, I think, and that's just because of the overall lack of popularity of the sport comparatively to other sports. So it's hard to kind of gain that, but if you followed it a lot, it's probably really easy to have that rooting interest or that story that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's tough for me because I can name you a lot of players from like the 90s hockey teams because I played NHL 93, 94 a ton, even some of the later ones. When the Coyotes get a team, I'm super invested in that. I can name a lot of those from like 98, 99-ish, and then I fell off. And it's a shame because there's a lot of things about hockey I like. A lot of those were rekindled when we watched this game. But even when the Coyotes made the run to the Western Conference Final in the mid-2010s, I was kind of like, okay, cool, but it didn't suck me in. That's a shame because even though I've lapsed from baseball, when the Diamondbacks made their World Series run, I was back in. I don't know what it is about hockey that's kept me separated. Obviously, part of it is what we've already mentioned. The TV product is always so-so, and even with the benefit of like Super HD TVs, it hasn't been as good as I thought it would be. Some folks have joked about the glow puck, and I get it. But overall, as a fan, it's tough because, like you said, I know who Jack Eichel was for the Golden Knights. He's one of the best players in the league. I was surprised to see Anze Kopitar was still on the Kings. He scored, I think, the Kings' first goal of the game. I think he's been with the Kings for like a decade. But other than that, any other players, I'm like, yeah, I don't know who that is. I don't know if they're any good. So I was looking up stats for a few of them on my phone, being like, oh, this person has like 30 goals this season. Cool. Never heard of them before. That's on me, to be clear. But it's also on the league, which has not done a good enough job marketing its younger stars. You remember like Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin when they came in. Well, guess what? They've both been in the league more than 15 years now.
I think it's crazy. It's talking about the atmosphere and everything. So there's a hat trick, and everybody threw in their hats. And I asked Dave, there's some kind of mechanism for people getting their hats back after the game, right? And he said no. And I thought, that's a lot of hats. That's a lot of money to just throw on the ice. And people, they couldn't wait to do it. They didn't feel like they had to. They were trying to move on with the game. And it's still people throwing hats in the ring.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
From the upper deck, not getting it down to the ice. Like I'm wondering if those people on the lower levels just continued the throw or like, oh, cool, free hat.
I saw at least a couple instances where that hat just died.
Yep.
I was like, well, somebody got a new hat. I guess that's cool. But like, people buy hats. They have a rooting interest, so they buy a hat that they like, and they just throw it away. That's crazy.
I mean, it's not a common thing. I think the fact that you went to a game where a hat trick happened is not a common thing. So that's a little bit of the of like, wow, does this happen every game? You don't throw a hat every game? No, it's pretty uncommon. So there's part of that. So people get excited when it happens. So they're willing to give up their hat, I guess.
There's a little more offense now, but I would guess you see a hat trick about once every 25 games.
Oh,
maybe less.
There was a fight,
and
that Maisie and Courtney were like, "Oh my god, are they allowed
to do that?"
Yeah.
And like, and
that was
and I think Courtney pointed out, like, they have like music queued up and everything. It's like, it's a thing.
Yeah, they played Down with the Sickness immediately. Like as soon as the gloves came off, and then they immediately started playing Down with the Sickness. It's like, oh, everyone knew this is okay. And that gets in a little bit with the thing of like why hockey fighting is accepted so much. And like, if a basketball fight happens, it's the end of society as we know it. I know there's certain factors that are not fun to talk about, but also it's like, this just happens. People just punch each other and it's totally fine. And it's like, okay, well, now one tackled the other, the fight's over, go to your box and go there for 5 minutes and think about what you did.
Now,
and that's over. And everyone's fine.
Yeah. To compare it to basketball, if a hockey player went up into the stands and started beating on fans,
took off his skate and started like,
yeah, we might have to reconsider.
Yeah,
fair. I know. It is a little funny to me how it's just like baseball fights and hockey fights are all like, yep, whatever.
I agree with you though, because I was kidding. Even on the floor, they are really against fighting in basketball, and I think you're right. They're trying to shed certain stereotypes. Like I feel like they have successfully done that. So if you get, and I think it's part of the problem in basketball. Now, I don't want to change topics. I'm just saying like the whole thing has kind of become like diluted a little bit. And in hockey, you really see like, no, they're still fighting. It's still aggressive. The players have a lot of passion. The fans were way more into it than when I go to the Suns games.
I think honestly, if they had some sort of like minor allowance for pushing and shoving in basketball without being such punitive penalties, it would actually help the game at this point.
I agree.
I totally agree.
Because it would raise up the stakes, raise up the passion, and not get rid of kind of that dead feeling. But because people get riled up after that stuff, they do. It's natural of human beings. Like the adrenaline starts flowing, and it's more fun.
Well,
so
don't you want them to? Like, I just feel like so often the big accusation for some sports is like, oh, they're sitting for the paycheck. They don't care at all. I was like, well, if there was actually rivalries and some fights, you don't have to start playing music when there's a fight in basketball. I'm just saying, like, don't suspend them for 15 games or, that they don't even do that now. But
it's still punitive just in the in-game sense because it's a technical foul.
Yeah.
Like, you shove somebody, it's instant tech, pretty much always. Like, there's a couple extenuating circumstances, which is a point for the other team. And look, 1 point when you're scoring 130 a game doesn't matter a ton, but it's also one more tech away from being tossed.
Yep.
And you can't have people, like, you can't have anything closed fist. And that's, we're not even advocating for that in any way whatsoever. You can't have people throwing punches, but the shoves and the, like, face pushes and stuff, to me, it's like, what rivalries do we have in basketball right now? And people would say, well, Lakers and Celtics, you could see how much interest there was in the game of the night. It's like, yeah, but that's because of the franchises and the fan bases. It's not because of anything the teams themselves have done since basically the end of the 2000s when they were playing each other in the finals. And there's a couple others, but hockey has all these long-standing ones. Some of them are tradition, but also you have a good playoff series against somebody in hockey, you fucking hate them for years because it's physical, it's intense, and afterwards the players all do the big handshake line. It's all cordial and shit. That's what's important about hockey. We need more of that in basketball, and instead it's like we're getting the most staid version of the game possible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if I need, that back in the Detroit days where it was like the Jordan rules where they're trying to kill each other.
No.
A little bit of physicality, I think is good. And I think hockey captured it really well. I also made a note that the presentation was through the ceiling. Like the pregame, there was like a Knights fighting, and it was crazy. It was pretty fun. I will say Maisie thought that the Knights were players who put on night suits just to kind of do the bit. And I thought, that's crazy, but that would be awesome.
Yeah.
production, I don't want to say through the floor by any means, but when you compare it to basketball, and maybe it's not fair because I think the Footprint Arena is one of the nicer arenas in basketball, but it's so much nicer. So it's just funny that with all that more money, the experience outside of that product, I think, is so much worse, kind of. I get sick to death. Hockey, they threw t-shirts one time. And they did stupid bits, like, not very often. And the bits that they did, I cared about. They had a fan go and try to hit the thing. Like, that's fun. I think basketball, I don't know. I'm such an old man now. I hate when Suns are down by 30. Get on your feet for free pizzas. And you're like, no, stop. Like, we should want to root for the team on our own volition, not you trying to fabricate noise to get the fans excited about the game. It's crazy.
Well, and it's also loud music all the time. In between every play, during every play, we have to have something that plays in every fucking half-court set. It's because it's like we think that fans have the attention span of fucking gnats. And maybe they do. I'm sure the NBA has done research that's like, yeah, in this TikTok generation now, we can't hold their interest for more than 10 minutes, and a game's like 2.5 hours. So we got to figure something out. But you know what was one of my favorite parts of the hockey game? Talking to each other in the intermission. Because you had a 17-minute intermission, which was a little on the long side. I don't feel like it felt like that when you watch it on TV. But whatever. You need some time in between the periods. And there was a little bit of music. A couple things happened over like the course of it. But you could actually like sit there and talk like, oh, wow, that was a cool first period. Oh, yeah, the action was sweet. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I've been good. You cannot fucking do that in a basketball game. It is an assault on your senses from 30 minutes before tip-off, if not more. So as I'm looking at this as a basketball fan who wishes he could get back into hockey, that was also a big selling point. The problem is it's a selling point for live and in person, and as we've mentioned, we don't have a team anymore. So I can't act on that desire even if I want to.
It was the one of the greatest things you mentioned, like being able to talk to each other, but also hearing the puck hit the stick. Just hearing the of it was also like, okay,
Totally.
that helps the whole experience because you can actually watch you can kind of have a better feel for where the action is occurring based on the sound and not just the visuals. And yeah, like you mentioned, they did studies and things like that where they have music playing in basketball games. I've heard probably a decade ago, maybe there was, a game where they said have throwback game where they didn't have any music on. And apparently the survey that came out of that was everyone hated it. And it's like, who went to this game
I would have
that
loved
didn't
that.
like music in the
Hearing
middle? If I would have gone to that game, I would have been like,
shoes, the talking.
I would have, if I had the opportunity, if I found someone like taking the survey post game, I would have like walked up, given my response, gotten a fake mustache and glasses, and gone back to give another response to make sure I can just stuff the ballot box with as much like, yes, please do this more because I don't want the music.
Yeah.
But
And it's not like the music's the
I'm
problem.
not the one buying tickets
Itself, it's volume, right?
Yeah.
Because if you were playing a background track and it was audible, obviously, but not overpowering, I'd be like, all right, it's something. If I don't notice it, if I'm tuned in, then it's fine. And if I'm bored, I guess I'd be like, oh, there's Amish Paradise playing in this half-court set for no reason.
Yeah. And Maisie also brought up, like, she's like, why aren't they calling any timeouts? I was like, there are no timeouts. It's just,
there's one.
Just go.
You get one. Vegas called it with 8 seconds left to set up that last play, 6-on-5.
Okay.
But they're very minimal, and the TV interruptions are also very minimal. And that's what Cody alluded to when he talked about briefly on the show. I think it might have been off air. During the Stanley Cup playoff last year, he mentioned like that's one of the pure joys you have left, especially sudden death, because you just play. And obviously you can't do that in regular season. You need to have the shootout in the regular season. But just there may be nothing purer left in sports than Stanley Cup playoffs, because then you get plenty of TV time, few ad interruptions. You don't get the thing at the end of basketball games where it's 2 minutes and it takes 17 minutes of real time if you're lucky. I don't know. I mean, Josh mentioned, like, I need to see a game. I think it's interesting. I think it's worth doing. Again, it sucks that if you're in Arizona, like most of us and our fans, well, good fucking luck, at least for the next few years, because I took away a lot of that, and I was like, Cody's goal when he invited people to it was that they have a good time, and that maybe it either rekindle or spark a love of hockey in people. I don't know if I'd say love, but it once again has me being like, why did I fall off? Is it worth trying to get back into?
If we got a team that was new, and I felt like, I'm kind of getting in on the ground floor, I think I would be interested in trying to follow it.
Well, for me, I know they won't. For me, my proximity of if they played at the old Glendale Arena, I would actually probably be into a lot more with my kids because if it's a quick drive, that's a nice thing to have. But they won't. I know they won't do that. That's part of the reason the Coyotes failed. So no so look me. But I could see myself getting into it a little bit more if I had that rooting interest in there because I would love to be like, yeah, I'm going to be a Vegas Knights fan. I can't be a fan of a team I'm not close to. I can't follow them in that same method. It just doesn't have that same oomph behind
Unless
it,
they were all injury replacements from a plane crash. And then, it doesn't have to be a plane. Their elevator broke.
It could be a bus crash.
The whole team was on the elevator. It snapped. We were on a lot of elevators in Vegas this weekend. I had a lot of time to think about my elevator snapping. Although Dave told me there's springs on the bottom. So why am I worried for anything?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it depends on how far you fall.
We were only 20 floors up. I think the springs would be fine with that.
There's a YouTube series. It's like the XKCD or whatever. It's like, what ifs things. You need to write into them and be like, what if I fell 20 stories on an elevator? And they'd write back, you die, you dumbass. Okay, move on.
Yeah, but I want to know why. Well, now that I say that, it's stupid. But, like the springs are there. Am I dying because I spring and then I hit the ceiling on the way? Like,
that's the question. Yes.
Yeah. How does the physics work?
Yeah.
By the way, it's a lot of pressure on the injury replacement team, and you're like, well, no, it's not because they have no expectations. They're replacing a team that died tragically. It's like it is because in Sean's scenario, the second they lose that first season, then they're the new they're the standard. They have to die now,
right,
to make room for new injury replacements who can then overcome that adversity. So they're on a ticking clock. They don't have much time.
Yeah, I love that story. Like, so the Suns, when they did their magical run, what I thought was magical, they weren't replacements, but they were kind of like over the hill. No one had any expectations. And like the storyline was like somehow they're making all the way to the conference finals. That's what I need there. Not this fucking front runner team thrown together mercenaries, which is so funny because we never had the Suns cast about like, I don't know how I feel about like trying to win a championship with this mercenary team. And it doesn't matter because we're horrible, which nobody was expecting. Not to derail us. The narratives of sports, I think that's always the most interesting part. And the storyline of the Suns right now is about as bad of a story as you can get. Unless you're rooting against the Suns, and then it's great, right? This team did everything the wrong way, and they're paying for it. That's kind of nice. Just not if you're us.
They got their comeuppance, that's all.
Yeah.
By the way, one last thought I had as I was at that game, we talked about the relative volume of stuff. I've realized, like, a lot of arenas have mic'd up the rim. So, like, Dallas, for example, comes to mind. When somebody swishes a shot, you hear that really loud noise when the ball goes through the net. And I'm like, they had to do that because everything else is so fucking loud. They drowned out the natural noises of basketball and then had to introduce a way to fix the thing that they fucking broke just because the in-arena experience is so bad. Like, that's incredible to me.
They gotta start miking up the shoes.
God, can you imagine? People would lose their mind.
But then their shoes are getting too loud, so then they gotta pump up the music.
Right.
So.
And then if they shatter everybody's eardrums, they don't have to worry about any of it anymore. So they're great.
Yeah.
We'll just all be deaf.
And then you get Suns branded hearing aids,
So that was the first night of the trip, and Cody and Raya root for those two teams differently. Cody obviously from LA fan. Raya picked up the Golden Knights along the way, and they also had family and friends there like us, but others, some of which were also hockey fans, a lot of which were Kings fans, and happened to end up with a section with a bunch of other Kings fans who must have got like group tickets and come there together. So the Kings, who won 6-5, had a great night, and their fans were all having fun with it. But it was also respectful. That was the last thing I think I took away from it, was like a lot of those folks up in that section, not from the Cody and Riot part, but the other part, there was a couple different sets of them being like, oh, yeah, like the opposite team fans going, hey, good game. Oh, yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, we came up short. Yeah, we'll get them next time. And like I think back to like the shit people were saying the last time we went to that Suns-Lakers playoff game where it was just like, fuck you, I'm going to kill your family. Like, holy shit. And I'm like, man, like there's just a certain level of respect in hockey that you don't get with basketball.
Yeah, it was the same thing. Every game we go to, anytime there's another team's fans, we see something. Sometimes it's shut the fuck up, you stupid bitch, which is crazy. Other time we saw a young kid being like, yeah, go Jokic. And a Suns fan, this old Karen, 50-year-old woman turns around and screams at him. And you're like, what? That's crazy to me. It's crazy enough. I've had Maisie, she's gone and been like, we're not all like that. Because the Suns fans being obnoxious to another team's fans just for cheering their team. They weren't even doing anything. It's crazy. Nothing on the level of singing that LA song for 3/4 of the game. And they were like, hey, good job.
Well.
It's crazy.
Yep. And then, yeah, great. Thanks, Maisie. Yay, Suns fans suck. Well, except us, the three of us. Not you, Maisie. You suck. Yep. Then, wedding day. I'm just thinking of the ceremony itself was beach formal, which was I've never had in there. I've never been to a beach wedding, but they had it at the Mandalay Beach. Take that, Maisie. At the Mandalay Bay Beach, which was fun in that sense. I actually appreciated the fact that you could hear the waves and stuff behind them. Although, of course, it then turned into the fact of sometimes I couldn't hear the vows and things like that. But overall, it was a beautiful ceremony. Overall, I mean, weddings have a special place as far as beauty, I think.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I was sold at first. Because again, I'm pretty anti-Vegas now, I'm realizing. But when you sat down and the music started and you could hear the waves, I thought and the lighting, it was kind of at nighttime. So it wasn't always super duper clear. You're just in the middle of a giant city, You could kind of get carried off in the illusion. And so I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it worked. There was actual sand we were in. Or whatever approximates sand. It was close enough to where I was fooled. And it was fine. And then, not hearing the vows. We were in the front row somehow, which I didn't want to be, but it's how it worked out. Courtney also, we were in tune of why are we here? But
because they said take a seat.
I know.
Also,
and we still. I want you to know. You've never seen Always Sunny, so you're not going to get this. But Courtney and I made eye contact of what are we doing here? Because we were both front row in the corner. So Courtney and I closest to the bride and groom. Feels like a spot we shouldn't be in.
But to make that point, Cody's mom sat right next to me, and I very specifically stood up and said, "Here, would you like to have this seat? Because you're his mother, so I think you should have this seat." And she said, "No, it's fine. It's fine." I'm like, "But that you can have this seat right here," and she didn't want it. It wasn't like I was like, "Oh, I'll move if you want me to." No, I was like, "Yeah, here, have this seat."
Pity.
Well, as we found out, we accidentally almost had the worst seats because we were so close we couldn't really see anything.
Yeah.
So if you sat maybe the back row in the middle or sort of just in the middle of everything, then you could probably see their faces and how they reacted while they gave the speeches. And I certainly couldn't see Cody because his back was to me, but I couldn't really see Rye either because Cody was directly in front of her. And I'm not complaining or anything. It was still just fine. But it was one of those spots where I was like, oh, actually, we ended up hurting ourselves by sitting here. My bad.
Did you guys do vows, Dave?
Write our own, yes.
I don't remember.
We wrote our own.
I'm wondering if I don't remember because, I was standing there and trying, just thinking of a million things. Don't look stupid. Don't do anything like Chris said over the weekend. Don't do anything to screw up the wedding. Make sure you're on cue. I don't remember the vows at all. But their vows were really nice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the vows were heartfelt for sure. You could see the passion and the thought that was put into it. It's funny. There is a certain cliche that comes with vows because there's some things that you're gonna always put in there about, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad that I met you. I'm glad that I get to spend the rest of my life with you. But those things are so okay to be cliche, so it's not a complaint whatsoever.
Well, yeah, because what's the alternative?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know about this, but we're gonna give it a shot.
Well, here's my first marriage. We'll see how it goes. All you guys check back in 3 years, all right?
Mm-hmm.
My main takeaway, and this is going to get me in trouble with my family, but the hell with it. I'm a man in his 40s now, so who gives a fuck?
I'm with you on this one.
Was that it was about them. And the main problem I've had with the big church weddings in particular is about 75 minutes of runtime, which is already too much to begin with. That's a separate topic, though. But I know the people who are religious are going to say this is the point. It's more so about the church, the teachings, the spiritual journey, the community. And it feels like you get maybe a couple minutes for their vows, and everything else is not really about them. This was a ceremony that was just under 30 minutes, I think, start to finish. And that was like when they started coming in. And 10 minutes of that ish was their vows. And I was like, that's great. This is about the two of them. It's not about a bunch of other things that are about everyone. This is about them. This is their day.
And I also liked to here, I'll get in trouble too, Chris, and I mentioned this in the wedding, the officiant, I don't know what I didn't want to say pastor. I don't know if there's any affiliation at all, but officiant.
That's right.
The whole thing was about like love and put each other first over everything. And I really like that. And I know so often it is put God first. If you both put God first, even over each other, that's the most important thing, then you guys are going to be fine. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a romantic, but I'm like, I like the messaging of, no, like you guys are the most important thing to each other now. And that was really nice.
The hard part is I don't know exactly what that means to put God first. Like, I don't know how to physically do that. So that's the hardest part for me, I guess. But I do agree with the idea. There's another subset of that where they say, put each other first always. And a lot of people don't do that when they have kids. Mm-hmm. And a big part of Raya's and Cody's vows were about kids because they very much want to have kids, which is great. But the key is, and what Courtney and I have learned, is that you still need to put each other first a lot of times, because everyone says, oh, your kids are the most important thing. You can't have anything else kids. Well, a lot of marriages fall apart when you lose yourself in the kids, and that sucks. And then that's not putting the kids first.
Right.
So,
and you know who that sucks for? Hi, divorcee kid here.
Yeah,
the kids, because then the parents can't ever be the best version of themselves for the kids. So inevitably, it's going to end up making them worse off.
Dave, what did I tell you at your house? I read somewhere. The factory is more important than the product.
Oh yeah,
and then Courtney didn't laugh, and I was like, "Oh, did she find that offensive?" And then I found out she just passed out. So
yeah, she's asleep. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Okay.
But I like that too. To add on to what you said, put each other first before all else. And he mentioned before family, before friends. And I was like, oh, well, there's family and friends in attendance. But as I thought about it, I'm like, no, like that's 100% spot on. Mm-hmm. And it's not to say that you guys aren't important or even vital to the success of a marriage or none of that. But it's just, you can't be the first priority. You can be second. You can be really important. But like, if you two aren't clicking, if you two can't communicate and make this work, none of the rest of it matters. So I was like, okay, like I wasn't necessarily, I thought the officiant did okay overall, but I thought that part of the message was especially good. I was like, all right, I like this a lot.
I even like.
Here's where I get to be controversial. Because I think my controversial part is that for me, like you mentioned about putting each other first, that means that you two are a single unit. I think in marriage, you're a single unit. That means you make decisions together all the time. For me, and I don't know if this is how it is for the majority nowadays, that's a finance thing for me. And the idea of having husband and wife who don't share finances is absolutely mind-blowing to me, because I don't think you can be a single unit who makes cohesive decisions together unless you have that type of intimacy of your lives put together, even in a financial sense. I don't understand it. Like, even when I'm trying to plan on coming up to visit you guys or whatever, it has to be like, okay, we're agreeing on this. Okay, I'm going to do this on this date, and this is going on. We're okay with this. We're going to plan whatever. Yeah. Like, it has to be a cohesive unit.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's funny because Maisie and I are probably a little atypical because we still have like separate accounts, just because we're lazy mostly. But we're very much on the same page about like finances. Anytime we make a big purchase, and even if it's individual to us, whether it's me with video games or her with like her tattoos. It's like, are we in a position right now? How are we feeling? And how's your debt doing? How's my debt doing? And so, yeah, I think you're totally right.
I mean, that is a normal aspect of it's fairly normal. Sometimes you want to have your own like side account if you have the finances and you each have your own income. But other times it makes it easier to not have those discussions. So if you are having those discussions, then you're still including each other. You just haven't commingled everything, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But in those instances, like, because I think I still have my original checking account I opened when I was 16 or something like that open. I'm sure she has a card or something that's still open that she could spend money on if she wanted to, but we still have those discussions. So anyway, side tangent.
I even liked, again, I'm not just trying to make, I just want to do a review of the officiant. But even like, I liked not love, basically just saying, I never heard I love you because of being like a bad thing, kind of. And then when he said it, I was like, oh, I guess it's a good point that approaching it love in spite of, in all instances, is like, yeah, that's where it's at. That's cool.
It's the unconditional aspect of
Yeah.
it, which that again, that's being the cohesive unit where it's like, hey, we're together. Now, there's limits to that, of course, but like,
I love you
the
in spite
idea-
of you letting the whole
You
town
killed
run
my
train
mom,
on you.
So, like, there's limits to that, but the idea is that if you both have that mentality of I want to work for you and you work for each other, then even when you make mistakes, you'll still love them in spite of those mistakes because the intent is good.
Mhm.
So there. Anyway, so marriage, it's fun.
Yeah. Wedding went well overall. Maisie got hit in the face by bubbles.
Excellent.
But it hit right just after sunset. So as Sean said, like the timing was good. It did sort of like darken the surroundings, so you weren't like, I'm in Vegas. All that worked pretty well. Afterwards, quickly stopped for photos. Of course, they had to do some stuff behind, so it took them a little while to get over there. I can't say anything bad about the photographer because he works for me. But I thought that all went pretty smoothly, and obviously we just kind of got our one group picture with them and then headed off. But judging by when they showed up at the place where the quote-unquote reception was being held, it seemed like it went smoothly because they were about an hour ahead of schedule. And then it was just kind of like a low-key night, which was by design. Cody and Rye's whole thing was like, we don't want a big reception. Also, receptions cost a ton of fucking money, so I can't blame them. And it was like, all right, we're going to go to this sports bar that we like quite a bit, had good food. We're just going to kind of like commandeer part of it and just take over some tables and sit together, and people can just eat and drink and have a good time, and doesn't feel like a bunch of pressure. You don't have to do 17 different things. Here's the garter. Here's the flowers. Here's the what the fuck ever. This first dance. And I actually really like that part maybe most of all.
I think they had reservations about what they perceived as like a budget reception, and I thought it was awesome. So for all the reasons you just said, and it just ended up being very chill. We just hung out. We weren't, and this is fine. I know Dave maybe is more disappointed about this than me, but like we just got to be our group of 5 people. We didn't have to worry about like, oh, we're in a table with 4 other people. Time to make new friends. And it's like, that's fine, but like, can we just spend time with people we care about tonight? And we did, and it was great.
How dare you put me in a box? Like you
You
just
put
shoved
yourself
me
in the
that
box. We
case.
had this conversation in Vegas. You said it's fun.
Part of the fun of weddings, I think, is having the fact of different groups of people come together because of the joining of 2 families, the fact that 2 people are becoming one, and the fact that you get a whole bunch of different walks of life who are there for one common purpose, and therefore sometimes you can find some really cool relationships, common ground, things to discuss. Now, I'm not complaining at all. That didn't happen because of the nature of the event. We each had our own individual tables, but that is an aspect of weddings that I do enjoy, is the fact you're kind of forcing people together for a common purpose.
Yeah, but then what happens is I end up dancing with a lady the whole wedding. Turns out she's getting married.
That's your own dumb fault.
Well, I
Like,
didn't
look at the damn
know.
finger. Look, we did. We warned you.
Too late.
But this is my first time not being in a wedding party in a while. So it was my first time being kind of like a fringe participant in a wedding instead of like one of the core ones. And from that perspective, it was nice because I'm coming into this, I know next to nothing about Rye's family other than sort of what I've heard from Cody. I haven't really met anybody. I don't know most of the friends. There's a couple of the people I know just because they're sort of adjacent to Cody's work and thus my work. But for the most part, I knew almost nobody there. I knew one other of Cody's friends because we've hung out a few times. And from that perspective, it's really nice because like a lot of the activities feel like they're catered to people in the room knowing each other. And when you do, that's awesome because that is the blending of families, as Dave said. But for the people that are a little bit further down the totem pole, I actually thought it was kind of refreshing because it's like, okay, now there's no pressure on like, this is your aunt who I've never met and probably will never see again. Oh, this is your third cousin. This is a friend that you don't see ever, but you met him and you were best friends in elementary school. Like, there's none of that stuff where you could just hang out with who you wanted to. And if you did know more people, hang out with more people. But for us, which was not knowing that many people, we just got to spend time because we don't get to see Dave and Courtney a lot either. So for us, that was an opportunity in like the inside of the event itself.
Yeah. No, there's value to it both ways. So
I don't have anything against
again,
traditional weddings, but I was like, man, it was refreshing. Maybe having done one that wasn't, again, like 4 hours of things one after another in a reception. I don't begrudge couples doing that. It's your one big day. I'm not trying to be super negative about it, but from a participant perspective, I was like, thank God. Like, I do not want to have another toss between like 3 different people, and I don't want to see the groom basically eating his bride's thigh trying to get a garter off of her. Like, I don't. I know those are traditions. I don't need them.
Yeah,
That's a fair point.
No,
I do miss the catered food.
Yes.
The food at the restaurant was fine. It was good even. But like
Yeah.
most of the time wedding food is really good.
I guess, but I think, well, okay, I've never paid the price for it, so I guess I can't really use this as an argument, but I'm like, even in the back of my head, I'm like, this probably costs like $10,000.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad they didn't spend it. But,
Which I guess it's a good sign that it does feel like it's that fancy. You better be getting commensurate value out of that when you're feeding a bunch of people. But I'm just like, this was low key, but I didn't mind it. But I mean, you're right. It is better.
Yeah. See, Dave is social driven. I'm food driven. I'm like a dog, you know?
I'm both.
Oh.
I like food too.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
My God. The wedding receptions is like, you mean I get to go and meet a whole bunch of new people and drink a bunch of drinks and eat a bunch of great food? I'm in. Let's do
Dave,
this.
you know
Like,
those
that is
things-
the best.
Yeah, have you seen them on YouTube where like they put you in like a box with like either no sound
Yeah, you did
or
that
like,
earlier.
whatever? I feel like I could do it and you could not. Have we had this conversation?
You have said how you'd love to have that sensory deprivation type of thing.
You know what? That's too far. I'm talking just about like being alone in a room for like hours. Like I think you would go crazy.
If there was truly no like light and I just had to sit there with nothing else but my thoughts, it would be a little difficult. I'd be okay. It depends on how long, obviously, but like I'd be okay for half hour if I had to be. Hour probably. If you're gonna tell me 12 hours, no light, no sound.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
feel
you-
claustrophobic.
You betrayed a lot when you said, I think I could be fine for 30 minutes. I think that's pretty telling, actually.
The first 3 minutes and 30 seconds, I got that easy. And then we'll see.
Like maybe if I'm sleepy, I could do 8 hours. That's probably fine if I had a good place to lay down. But I don't know. I just like, what am I like? What is there? Okay, you're in that box for 7 hours. What do you do? Like, what do you do with yourself?
Work out, just, think,
No.
meditate.
Wait, hold on. I said no light, no sound.
No. So you can still work out.
How the hell do you work out if you can't see?
Still push-ups, sit-ups, stretching. That's at
Planks.
least 30 minutes.
Yeah, great.
And
What
I don't know
are
what
you
you
doing
do for the rest of the 12 hours.
Yeah, that sounds awful. That sounds like some sort of torture. I don't know how you'd enjoy this.
Well, we
But-
learned a lot about Dave this weekend.
Obviously, I am the star of everything. That's just
he's
how
the
we go.
extrovert. Even your
Mhm.
wife is like, yeah, he's the extrovert. I'm the introvert.
That is not what I meant, Doug. That is not fair at
Wow,
all.
Doug
Like,
really has the heart of it, I think.
Dave thinks blind people can't
No.
work out.
yeah, well, except for the fact of Sean's not blind and therefore doesn't have, the requisite knowledge of how to work his body not seeing, unlike a blind person who would be used to that. So, no, that's not what I said. I said Sean not being able to see. couldn't save it.
Tricky.
Saved.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
canceled yet.
Kick, save, and a butte.
All right, rank Cody's wedding weekend out of 10.
Well, it was in
Solid 2.5.
Vegas. So that's
I think you just haven't given Vegas the you don't vibe with Vegas because you don't like gambling at all, and and you don't like being in crowds, you don't like gambling, and you enjoy drinking when you're home by yourself with your Switch in your hand. So that's not what Vegas
I will
is.
tell you, when we were walking back, I said we don't like go out for drinks very much in this house. But it was actually kind of nice doing that. There was a little bit of food, but for the most part, that was as close to we all get going out to drinks.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know what? That was really nice. I thought it was really fun. So I'm okay with that. And the food was great. I got that New York pizza. I got that cruffin thing. That was really good. The food I could get behind. The play area that we went to was fun. I don't know that we need to necessarily go into that here. It was fun. It's worth a day. Go to it for a day if you get a chance. Yeah, the gambling I don't really care about.
Oh,
and
that's-
traversing
and
I
that's-
don't really like.
And that's a huge aspect of it. So you can say Vegas isn't for you, and that's fine. But but it's even not much for me anymore. I don't enjoy it in nearly the same way.
Because it's so expensive, right? It used to be affordable, and now it's really
very true.
like if we weren't where we are in our lives, I don't know how you afford it anymore.
No,
like I felt.
I mean,
like I got a salad the first night. It was between salad and a drink. I think the meal just for me was like $40.
Yeah,
one dinner.
Yep,
a salad. Not even like anything crazy. $40.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think younger kids will bring their own like entire meals and put 5 people in a room, and therefore they eat in their room and they have drinks they mix in their room, and that could work. And I've done things like that before when I've gone to Vegas, but yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. So therefore, I don't go very much. I can't think of the next time I'm going to go. That's part of it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I honestly don't know the next time I'm going to go
So,
at all.
But we made the most out of Vegas for
Yes.
not really loving it. I thought the ceremony was very nice. I love that it was pretty crisp. That was selfishly, that was cool. And then the reception was really nice. So, 8 out of 10. That's pretty high for not liking the place where it is. Like 8 out of 10 is pretty good.
I mean, the fact of it matters so much more the wedding is not the venue and not the location, more so the people that you're going to see. And in the past couple of years, I've been doing this with Cody. He's become kind of a really close person to me in some ways. So it was great to see that. And that's what matters. So there.
If they did the wedding in Disneyland, oh, that's 10 out of 10.
Then there's the 10 out of 10. You're right. But that would have cost way more. So
I would have to think if Disneyland would be worse than Vegas to me for that
Cost-wise,
specifically. I like Disneyland more than Las Vegas, but for a wedding, God, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't know how weddings work in Disneyland. I'm sure someone's done it, but like you have to have like a section rented out, right? You can't just have people walking through.
I'm gonna Google this right now.
I'm sure it has to be.
Wedding.
You see like the groom and bride like Mickey Mouse ear sets and stuff like that. There's clearly mechanisms.
Okay, here we go.
You're gonna get
I'm Googling
spam
this.
for getting married in Disneyland now because you Googled
And
it.
then Courtney's gonna see the things and be like, "Why are you trying to plan a wedding in Disneyland? We've already gotten married." And then the
she's
whole
gonna
thing's
find
gonna
out
fall.
about your
You've just
second
started
life.
Yeah.
You have started the end of my life, basically.
Yeah.
Is what happened. Let's see. So you can have ceremony venues at Disneyland Resort Hotel. So you have the ceremony itself at the hotel, not at Disneyland
That makes
itself.
Okay. All right.
Well, there's 2 ways you can do it. Ceremony venues at Disneyland Resort Hotel start at $15,000. So
Is
that's
that all?
fun.
Okay.
Or you can do it in the park, and there's like 1, 2, 3. You can do it in the Sleeping Beauty Castle forecourt, so you can do it right there by the castle, which is where everybody wants to do it. That doesn't have a cost on this site, at least. But or you can do it before the park opens or after the park closes. So those are your options. So it's early morning or late night.
Or you can be a bajillionaire and you can pay to rent out a part of the park and do it during park hours because then they can maybe cordon it off. But
Dave, tell me what you think about this idea. The officiant sitting at the front of the log, you married couple in the log, and you're going through the vows on the way up to Splash Mountain, and then you get like the kiss the bride right as you fall, and then it's consummated with the drop.
Then you have the issue of the officiant either has to be facing away from the bride and groom to sit forward, or you're sitting backward on Splash Mountain, which is very dangerous.
Yeah, no, he is a pro, but yeah,
he's
but
like
then
the
but I'm seeing the flaws. Like the bride and the groom can't be next to each other. They have to.
You gotta do like the over the shoulder kiss here.
Yeah,
like
and then that's a little awkward. Okay, I'm gonna workshop it.
Yeah, it didn't work. So, all right, Chris, the rest of the show's about you.
Oh, well, I don't really need to spend a lot of time about me. That's why I wasn't minding this kind of being towards the back end, anyways. But because we didn't do anything for your 40th birthday.
That's fine. I don't.
We can loop them both together.
Honestly,
we can do the double 40 extravaganza.
I remember making such a big deal out of being 30 and freaking out, and I turned 40. I was like, I don't care. So I don't know if, Chris, you have the same thought process if you had more of a freak out at 30 than 40, but we've now been on the show for the time covering these changes in our decades, so we've documented this. So where are you? Was this a worse or easier than turning 30?
A lot easier. I think part of it is that My birthday's early in the year, not as early as Dave's, but I was in a 40-plus tournament for disc golf the second weekend of the year, or third, I guess. It was like the 16th of January, 17th of January, around then. So I've already kind of come to terms with it the last 2 months before now. So it's not like I'm coming to this going, oh my God, I turned 40? What? I've kind of thought of myself as being 40 since the year started. So in that respect, that was one part of it. And then I think also, I didn't really like the way I was in my 20s. So I think going into my 30s, the idea was like, well, shit, I just wasted a decade. And I'm not really happy with who I am or where I'm at or what I'm doing. So, like, now the pressure's on. I got to not fuck up my 30s because I can't do what I just did in my 20s again. And now that I'm going into my 40s and I'm relatively happy with, especially the back half of my 30s, it's like, okay. I mean, is everything perfect or is there no way to improve? No, but I'm a hell of a lot more confident in who I am and what I like and what I want out of life in ways that I definitely wasn't when I turned 30, or certainly even more so before that. Like mid-20s, I had no idea who the fuck I was. So in that respect, this was simple. It's like, okay, I'm in my 40s, but okay.
It's kind of exactly that. So if we didn't do anything for our 30s and or 40th birthday party, that's pretty much why. Like it just is at this point. So I mean, I'm just glad that it seems to be becoming easier to grasp the fact of getting older as you get older, and therefore it makes the impact less. How's that?
Yeah, it makes sense. When you reach 45 and you're just dying to have another kid, Dave, what then?
You just told the greatest joke ever. Another kid? Go fuck yourself. No, I want another kid.
Well, you don't know now. You got a ways to go. So 45.
No. The idea of having a child at 45, like a brand new baby for me, especially at 45, after at that point, Caitlin will be 16 and driving. That's pure torture. I'm like, oh, cool. So I get to go through the whole childbirthing thing again. Oh, and by the time this child finally is 16 and drives on their own, I'll be 61 years old.
Yeah.
No.
You don't want to reset the empty nest clock?
Not in the least. My uncle did that. I think my uncle had a kid, God, at damn near 48, I think. And I'm like, nope, that sounds terrible.
Well, and I think to your point, though, like if it was your first kid and you just realized late in life that you wanted it, I think that's different than...
Exactly.
We've raised our kids. Now let's start again.
Exactly.
That's
no,
rough.
I'm not. If it's your first one, you've always wanted kids, and for whatever reason, timing, life, money, whatever it was, didn't work out. And then, okay, great. If that's your dream, that's what you want. That's fantastic. For me, fuck no.
Yeah.
Nope. Don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think,
anyway.
I mean, I'm basically there. I think. I don't know. I haven't had a major freak out yet. I think I have those realizations like, oh my God, I'm 30, whatever. The realization that I remember very clearly, like, you know, like it was yesterday, my dad's 40th. And now I am there. That's what's a little bit like, oh, like not that I'm struggling with it, but it feels surreal.
Mm-hmm.
Like very clearly, I remember the mug that was like over the hill that they got him, and I think he didn't like love that joke at the time, and just like really clearly remembering all of it, and now I am where he was. Is insane.
I am so glad that it's not a thing anymore. Like that whole over the hill thing is dead, because that was something that I remember one of my bosses had when I was like 25, 26, somewhere around, maybe 27. Somebody turned 40. One of my bosses turned 40, and it was like, here's all the black balloons because you're dying, basically. Here's the walker in your office. And I'm like, I turned 40 and went and played basketball with a bunch of 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like, did I do well? No. But did I do it? Yes. Yeah. I'm not dead. I'm not going to be dead for another double my life, basically. Yeah. So I'm halfway.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just
like,
not
it's
fun,
not that I'm dead.
But I think that's like one of the worst fucking parties possible. I hate all the gag gifts. Oh, I got incontinence diapers. Cool. Like, what the fuck are you going to do with anything from that? I know some people's like, haha, it's funny because you're old and dying. And it's like, it's not funny. You're not funny. And I hope you die much earlier than expected rather than me.
Yeah. It's, well, and the fact of we're all going to get it. Like, unless you die beforehand, we're all going to turn 40 eventually, one way or the other. So, like, why, I don't know. I hated that, and I'm so glad that it's not a thing anymore. I think our generation's like, no, this is stupid. We're done with this. And we did, like, collectively just said, nope, done.
Yeah.
I'm happy with
Well,
it.
and my plan is to be at least 100. So the 50 is the earliest point where I have to start thinking like, okay, halfway. But I think you're right, Dave. I certainly, when I think about being old and like, oh man, my days are numbered, I'm not there yet, but like it's much easier to just be like, oh, like when I was 20, I was scared of being 40. And now that I'm 40, it's like, fine.
Yeah, maybe
Kinda
I'm scared. I might be being scared of 60 or so, but I've seen a lot of like my grandparents and other people around me have quality of life extend into their 80s now.
Yeah.
And in theory, science and medicine is only going to keep improving. There's only so much you can do. Father Time's undefeated, whatever. But like, I'm not worried about like, oh man, what am I going to do when I'm in my 60s? Like, well, probably just keep living life with a little slower with some things. I'm not going to play basketball in my 60s probably, but like, I'm not worried about like, oh man, it's going to be miserable. I think just because like that slow process of time just keeps ticking. And yeah, when you look back on it, you're like, holy shit, it's been 10 years since I turned 30. It's like, well, yeah, it also feels like it. Because the pandemic, it feels like it's been 15 years since I turned 30. So in some ways, I feel like I'm on borrowed time. I'm like, great, I'm ahead of the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then the goal, my master plan, Dave, is to retire at 50. I think it was 57 is the goal. That's my master plan. Early retirement. So then, I turn 60. That's a way to make 60 easier, I think. It's like, okay, now I'm retired. So now I just have Switch just all the time. I don't have to worry about work anymore. Just me and my Switch. The Switch 3,
So I'm very excited for the headline in about 2055 or so. Sean is 63, I think at this point. He's been retired for 6 years, does nothing but play the Switch all day. News headline comes out: Sean Elters murdered all friends and family in his vicinity because he went crazy because he had nothing else to do with his life but the Switch.
Yeah, that's where we're different. I can be, because I'm getting it in early where it's like a job to like play all the games, stay on the pulse of pop culture, like watch all the shows. So I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be working out. But you make a good point. I gotta find a thing. I would like to keep playing some level of basketball even when I'm older. But it's not gonna be the same, and I know that. But I don't like golf. I see old people playing racquetball. I don't know how that's gonna go. I think racquetball is exhausting.
Pickleball.
So
Pickleball. That's
right,
it.
but like I don't play pickleball right now. It's like I want to find, my goal in the next 20 years is to find the like golf equivalent where I'm just do it into really old age and I like it and it's fun and keeps me active. And I don't have that yet. I know it's the new hype, pickleball. But
Chris, do you want to introduce him to this sport called disc golf? He might have fun with it.
No, I feel like even disc golf is gonna be like kind of like, oh, I threw out my arm throwing it.
They have protected age divisions. It could future-proof you pretty well. It's sort of my plan if I stick with it. I mean, there's 60 plus, 65 plus,
it's
70
okay.
plus.
I don't love disc golf. And I think that's my problem. Is like I want to find something I really love, like basketball.
You'd probably be good at disc golf if you tried.
Yeah.
You're pretty good for not having tried much.
I'm not, but
I like when Dave and I play. That's fun because it's usually pretty close, and that's nice. But
we don't count Chris's score far as being
why
close
would we?
because it's not a contest.
Well,
You
we have
do
ways to
half
make
sleep.
that work in the future. Like, we can have 2 or 3 of you guys play best shot and I play worst shot.
We'd still lose though. So, but maybe it'd be
I don't
close
know.
at least.
So maybe if I start 30 feet from the basket and you start at the tee box, maybe we'll be close. I think.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe.
probably my guess.
But again, and like I think I would like tennis, but I'm like tennis is not that far from racquetball. Maybe the answer is racquetball. Although racquetball's declining now. No one plays racquetball anymore, so I'm gonna be by myself.
Well, problem is
Yeah, it's
nobody
pickleball.
plays tennis anymore either.
Yeah.
Not as bad as racquetball, but both have declined just because of the rise of pickleball. Tennis specifically has lost court space to pickleball. But who knows? I mean, pickleball, I think, is going to be pretty future-proof just because it attracts, like, rich old assholes and also people who want to stay fit in their 50s and 60s, whatever.
See, rich old ass. Okay. This is too long of a story to get into, but the assertion that it's rich old assholes is exactly the joke that I was trying to make, and somebody got offended, and that's all I'll say right now. Maybe I'll tell the whole story on a later episode. But
that's why it's honestly, we won't go into it long, but like there's a neighborhood here in Flagstaff. Here, I'm going to get myself canceled for this of all things. A neighborhood here in Flagstaff was pushing back on pickleball courts being put into the area because it's too noisy. And we don't want the noise and the light pollution and this and that. It's like, first of all, you decided to live by a park, so like, you got the increased home values out of it. But guess what? It's a park.
Yeah.
But also, a lot of the people that would be willing to go to a city council meeting and complain about pickleball being put in are the exact type of people that would play pickleball.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it wasn't in their neighborhood, they would love it. So I'm just saying it attracts a certain demographic more than others, which is true of most sports. I mean, it's not like golf is like super rich with persons of color. It's always been a pretty privileged sport because it's expensive. So that's not just pickleball, but in general, it's like to find that retirement activity, it's going to be something, it has to be something you enjoy, and you haven't found it yet, like you said. So I guess we'll have to keep trying shit. I did enjoy pickleball one-on-one. As I got older, I could see why 2-on-2 is beneficial, but you would hate it if it wasn't one-on-one.
Oh, right, because you stand there.
You just stand, you just move this way, move that way, swing, swing. One-on-one, at least you got some of the feel of tennis. You got a lot of movement back and forth, court coverage, stuff like that, front, back. So there's some merit to it, and we can always go try it. It's at FAC pretty easily to just, like, they rent out rackets and shit, but I don't think you're going to like it yet. In your 50s, you might take to it. I think you're still too athletic now.
Well, and maybe golf, you know, I would like to like golf. I just haven't yet.
It's so fun. If you learn how to hit the ball straight, that's 95% of it. Yeah. Just do it more, really. Like, go to the driving range and just hit a bunch and kind of try to fix the straightness of your shot.
Badminton's another racket sport. Easy to do, but again, it's also pretty associated with rich people. Specifically rich British people in the 1800s. I don't know. I think the problem, I don't know how to fix this, and maybe lessons would help. As athletic as you are, Sean, you have the least athletic-looking golf swing I've maybe ever seen. Except like Charles Barkley. You know, it's not that bad. And Barkley was obviously an elite NBA athlete.
Yeah, it's smooth at least, but it sucks. Well, every sport I just had to teach myself. But with golf, it was... it's hard to teach yourself golf, turns out.
It sure is. It sure is. I've really barely done it myself, and I can hit the ball okay.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
And that's essentially it.
All right.
We did
That's the Vegas weekend. That's a couple people turning 40. Sean does that in a year and a half. We'll get back to him when that happens. And that's all for now.
The idea that we're doing this when I had a 30 episode, which was like episode, 200 something, maybe? I think, it was 2 something, or maybe 1 something. It's probably 1 something, but
probably
like
1 something.
Yeah, cool. Well, we'll be into the episode thousands by the time if we turn 50, if we, as long as we keep this up. So
I haven't started thinking about episode 1000 yet because it's,
that we're still a ways away.
Yeah, it's probably 7 years off, but it would be interesting to get there. And now we've done episodes in 3 decades, like how LeBron is playing in his 4th decade because, 18, 20s, 30s, now 40. Well, this is our 3rd decade of doing the show when you look at it by that measure, and it's like, oh dear.
Yeah. It's cool. Well, we're old. That's fun.
That's
I'm
right.
gonna find what episode that was real quickly.
I think in theory, Cody will be back next week. We can always grill him about it for a little bit of that show. We also will have a trivia one coming up. I think I've got that sort of looking at for 2 weeks from now.
666 is the trivia?
Sure.
The evil episode is the trivia?
Hell trivia. Well, you have to either suffer the wrath of Cody's crown or knock it off of his head.
God, Cody's worse than you now. As far he got a little taste of success and you just let it go straight to his head.
It's toxic. It poisons your mind.
Yeah.
As soon as you win, you're like, I need more. It's just how it works.
And Sean wasn't there for it, but he even did a little bit of that at the start of the 20 questions things when him and Dave were on the same team.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
And he didn't contribute shit to that. So
Sean
contributed more to that than Cody did.
I haven't let it go to my head, but you could argue I've won the least. So your counter argument would be, well, win more, and then maybe you'll let it go to your head, and then I'll be like, well,
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Episode 164, by the way, was Dave's Dirty 30. So
500
500 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Wouldn't have seen that coming. I mean, I didn't think we couldn't do this, but I never thought.
I mean,
I think 500 was the point where I was like, all right, well, now it's house money. I never would have thought this much.
think about the insane consistency of that. There's 52 weeks in a year, 10 years. That's 520, 500 episodes. Like, we've missed a few here and there, but
Yeah.
that's pretty fucking
We
consistent.
usually took one off for Christmas or Thanksgiving. Like, we take a couple off a year, but we usually now the other day is like just recorded in advance. So
Yeah.
pretty rare we just miss a week outright. But then again, I also
look at
at
that.
some point, as I get old and forgetful, can just go back and listen to them, which is going to be both cool and extremely depressing probably if I'm ever like, here we go, start from episode 1. But it's an option
I
I
do that
have
every
if I
once in a
want to.
Mm-hmm. It's you can see the growth of all of us throughout that process at our lives, which is mind blowing. So
Yeah.
go back and do it, fans.
You know what's also cool as we wrap up? Last thing I'll say, we also now with the video one will be able to see ourselves age, which is both again kind of cool and kind of horrifying.
We really probably should do a screenshot of our first video episode versus today.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's 700. We'll do that. Maybe 700. We do that. Put a video still of ourselves next to each other.
Yeah.
There we go.
So there's that now too. That only goes back to like 380 something I think was around when the first video was, but still that now has been 5+ years of almost 6 now I think of video content. So it's
Mhm.
cool. We have an anthology of ourselves, even if nobody else ever listens, but a lot of you do. We had several people chime in the live chat, so we appreciate it. If you want to join in, dear listener, and you're not on the video side, you can go to youtube.com/@grayareas live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Arizona time, which just changed because daylight savings. Stupid motherfucker. But join us there or grayareas.live for all the posts going back to that same time in 2011 when we were very different people. We'll see you next time.